All right, guys, so excited for today's call. Stand for PTOT SLP. We have a very special guest. Man, this thing has evolved over the last 6 months. It's been officially 6 months since we started doing these calls, and they have been phenomenal. We've had the great privilege of learning from leaders in our industry on how to stand for our industry. And what's really neat about this for me is just, again, like the participation and the connection. Last video, we had over 1,000 downloads. With our special guest, Kristen Fox, who taught us how they stood for PT in their own area in a beautiful and powerful way. And today is no different. We have a very special guest that I am so excited to present. I will say that of all the things I could say to describe our next speaker today is that he is a down-to-earth, powerful leader, is what I would say. Seth Coulter is one of the coolest people I know, hands down. And I've had the privilege of getting to work with him for off and on, just in my networks, and getting the chance to know him off and on. And what he has created, kind of seemingly unintentionally, like he put a lot of work into it, but he always discounts it like it's no big deal, I believe is the model of what we need to do in our industry in order to stand for what we really care about as PTs and OTs and SLPs. They've had a ton of success quietly out there in Arkansas. So I'm going to try to do my best to do his bio justice. I will say, I told him this before the call, he had easily the most entertaining bio of anyone I know. So I might just read from it. It's really cool. So hang tight. Let me pull this thing up here. Okay. So Seth has been a PT for almost 40 years, and his purpose is to inspire hope and healing, which is one of the best company and individual purposes I've heard, to inspire hope and healing. So the true story of his becoming a PT started with graduating in Arkansas in 1979. He got a PT degree in 1983 from University of Central Arkansas. And this part I'm going to quote. Quote, I married a gorgeous redhead, Janice, 3 weeks after graduating PT school, and a week before starting my first PT position, making $22,000 per year at Pilgrim Wellness Management Services in Russellville, Arkansas. Man sakes alive. You wore several hats in that job, and then had a goal of opening a private practice in 3 years. He was going to work hard and needed to be doing it for himself. He started that practice, and then Seth, you gave it away in 1987. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to return to Russellville to become a clinical director for Pilgrim Wellness, that same company that you started with. Yeah. Is that correct?
That's correct. The owner, Bob Pilgrim, and I kept communicating every week or so. And my practice was doing okay in Monroe, but we were wanting to start a family and didn't want to be in Monroe. And so Bob asked me to come back one day, and I rolled over and looked at my wife in bed one night, and I said, hey, Bob wants us to come back to Russellville. She looked at me and she said, Seth, if you want to go back to Russellville, I will get up and start packing right now. If you don't ever mention it again. I said, she wants to go back as bad as I do. So I sold the practice in 2 weeks, and we started heading back. So
that's a beautiful story. And then there in Russellville is where you had your 3 girls.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what's interesting is he went back to go do that, and kind of skipping down his bio a little bit. He ended up becoming appointed director over 30 plus facilities, almost 300 employees at 27.
Right.
That's incredible. You know, the thing about that part of your story, I know we're going to talk a lot about what you've created with RehabNet, but I just want to mention that I feel like almost every PT story that we bring up is almost this like haphazard story of leadership. Like none of us are become PTs because we want to own a practice as the primary. It's always like, I want to be a PT. Yeah. And then I'm an entrepreneur. Let's build on that. But yours is a case of just a very typical piece of people falling into leadership. It sounds like a book that probably exists. Falling into leadership. Michelle, is that a book? She doesn't
I
know.
don't know it to be a book, but I'm going to look up. I'm going to check
Look it up
out
while we're
now.
talking. I think that would be really interesting. If that's not a book, I think, Seth, you need to write that book, Falling into Leadership. I mean, my gosh, 27, you're almost over 300 employees, 30 plus facilities. You didn't go to school for that. You took care of back pain. That's what you were going to school for. So love that piece of your story. And then you reopened Coulter Physical Therapy in 1989. I'm going to quote this again. In November of 1989, we opened Coulter Physical. I want to start talking with an accent when I start doing this. On a wing and a prayer. We opened on a Monday and I took off Wednesday as Janice gave birth to our second daughter. Man, isn't that the story of an entrepreneur? Opening up on a Monday and taking off Wednesday while you're having a baby. Technically,
Right.
the clinic grew modestly and we were able to provide an impact in the community. So this is where things get really cool and relevant to today's discussion, Seth. And I'm going to make sure I turn the time over to you to fill in any gaps there that you think are important. But you recognize quickly that you needed help as a business leader. Who here hasn't felt that as a business leader? You know, I mean, my word. You understood that building relationships was key. So you helped start a private practice organization called Rehab of Arkansas, which is what we're going to talk about here today, in the early 1990s. So all I'm going to say, because I want you to kind of talk a little bit more into that today, Seth, is that RehabNet had a dozen or so members who were committed to helping each other and committed to fighting for physical therapy and not fighting physical therapists. So I'm going to pause your bio right there. You still own Coulter Physical Therapy. It has had an enormous impact in Arkansas. And as you have grown RehabNet, you've been able to take a stand for physical therapy as a profession, which for me feels very similar to what we're doing here. You know, I think what's interesting is that you were very niche in your region, whereas this is a kind of a shot out in the dark into the country and to see who we can gather. But I love that the purpose is identical. So we've been having these discussions now for 30 years, or at least you have, right? Since the early 1990s. So Seth, first of all, before we get into RehabNet, tell us a little bit more. What did I miss about you? What else do people need to know about a humble leader?
I am passionate about the practice of physical therapy. I love being a physical therapist. I love the impact that I can have. I think we've only scratched the surface of what we should be doing as a profession. And if we will quit giving our profession away and take a stand for what our profession can do, I think we can reach some tremendous heights and do a lot of good. Everybody wants to be a PT. Chiropractors want to be PTs. Athletic trainers want to be PTs. Some doctors want to be PTs, and we need to take a stand and be PTs and be the leaders there. So,
I love it. I have a couple of questions that come up, but I want to turn the time over to Michelle. Michelle, what do you think people need to know about Seth?
Oh, he is an example of what physical therapists should be in our industry. I'm not that emotional about this because I just care that much about who you are as a human being and what you've already done in impacting my life, because you see our profession from a perspective that is at the same time empowering for who we are, to stand in who we are, but also empathetic to the people that are a part of it and the people we serve. And it's a humbling experience to be with you, because you bring strength, but humility and empathy. That is just a combination of things that the world needs and our profession needs. And I just think it's coupled with fun, and I think it's just it's all of those things that the world of physical therapy needs, in just bringing the light and the hope and the healing, but also the empathy, and also the standing for what we can do and who we are in our profession, while respecting others around us. And so that's who I think Seth is to me, and how benefited our profession is for him being a part of it. So.
Wow. Seth, you made Michelle cry. You should be ashamed. I'm just kidding. No, that's a wonderful piece. And yeah, as we stand as PTs, OTs, and SLPs together, in this fight. It is so valuable to learn from the men and women who've gone on and fought the battle. Like Michelle mentioned, Seth has this style about it. I mean, almost to a fault. I feel like now we're just talking about Seth this time, but it's important for you guys to understand the context by which he is here, because the men and women who speak on these calls are a very elite level. And if you're listening to these calls, you are also at an elite level, because who is taking the time to do this stuff? We all know the main reason we're in this pickle. It's because none of us, as a profession, on average, we have not taken the time to be able to just do more than survive. So when we go beyond survival and we're starting to really fight for what's right, then we can make a difference. So you being here makes you in the upper elite as well. And by the way, Michelle, I would really like everyone to start getting to know you a lot more on these calls. Michelle has been a silent support throughout these, but she is a powerful leader and someone who we need to all hear more from. So Michelle, as you get questions and stuff, let's treat this like one of our coaching calls. Just
Absolutely.
start talking, jump in, ask questions.
Yeah.
All that.
Absolutely. I'm going to add one more thing. In addition to standing in who we are as a profession, I think the greatest thing that you offer that so many of us, have a desire to do, but maybe just don't do the carry through, is the advocacy. You always advocate for our profession at a level that's just outside of the walls of your practice, which takes time, it takes effort, it takes research, it takes, time away from family and getting to know the lobbyists, all the people in between that goes that extra mile to show the true depth of like what you mean to the allied health professions as a whole, really. So
one of the reasons we spend so much time building Seth up is because having him accept a compliment is one of the funniest things you've ever seen. Hey man, you're doing great. Oh, I'm just a regular old guy. That kind of thing. That was pretty accurate. I could hear him when I said that in my voice. By the way, so Seth, we're going to get into it right now. Guys, I appreciate the fun that we're having, but we're going to get right into things. Before we do, I said this earlier, but Kristen Fox is now on the call. Thanks again for your share last month. That's up in the YouTube channel. If you guys haven't seen or heard it, it's a powerful meeting, credible leader. Do you know there's over 1,000 views on that, Kristen? So yeah.
Did not know that.
Yeah. So there's always a small spattering here. Most people are probably listening to it later. And then next month, we have a very special guest, Candice Mullendore, who is this powerful OT leader who's going to talk about what she has done in her region. There she is. Hello, Candice.
Sorry, I'm driving, so.
Yeah, no getting murdered, please. Don't die.
Nope, I'm just driving home.
Okay, great. Yeah, Candice, any preview for our meeting next month before we dig into RehabNet?
Preview, gosh. Well, I'm going to talk a lot about advocacy, obviously, and about some of the ways we've moved some mountains here in Nebraska in terms of insurance, and really help people understand, advocacy truly starts with just your patients, your everyday patients. We do it every day. I don't think we think about it necessarily as advocating for them, but then how we can take it to another level and really advocate for not only the patients, but ourselves about we deserve appropriate payment, and insurance companies need to start to recognize the value of our profession. So there's my little preview.
Love it. She has done some incredibly powerful things as well. We're talking to people who've gotten results, people. And as we do this with groups, there's a big problem we all have to solve together, which is how do we organize ourselves nationally in a way that's going to work? Because there's all these micro successes. How can we connect these? How can we make this a national movement? And I love what you said, Candice. The advocacy begins with the patient care. What a powerful statement that is, so that we don't need to feel guilt-ridden when we know there's more we can do. I think that's the other thing that drives us crazy, is that we don't have a lot of time, and then we're always feeling guilty that we don't do more. So taking that out of the equation is huge. So we look forward to seeing you next month. Mr. Seth, let's get into RehabNet. So this RehabNet you started in the early 1990s. What was the impetus behind that? I think we could probably surmise what that is, but what would you say the impetus is behind that?
The number one thing was the advent of managed care, and the thought of managed care coming in, and health maintenance organizations, and how that was going to work. And it scared a lot of us. We were like, oh, we don't know what how that's going to work for private practice physical therapists. We knew the hospitals would be safe places because hospitals and the doctors are going to work together and do things. So we formed a company and had about a dozen, maybe 15 members. And then we were fairly exclusionary in the beginning, trying to carve out geographic areas so that we could be the providers in that area. And that created an environment that was full of distrust and conflict and strife amongst another organization that came together because of our organization. And that organization was actually named Rehab Net of Arkansas. And we decided ultimately that the best thing was to form a coalition between the two groups. And so we formed one group and took the name of Rehab Net of Arkansas because it was a much better name. And then we started educating ourselves. We had an association where colleagues could come together and talk. We could share ideas. It was a safe place for us. There's a lot of overlap in Rehab Net. I mean, when you have 182 locations in the state of Arkansas as part of Rehab Net, you have overlap. There are 4 Rehab Net practices in Russellville within a 2-mile span, which epitomizes the fact that we are trying to work together for physical therapy and not fight physical therapists. So we may compete for some patients, which is fine, but we are really fighting for the practice of physical therapy. So, and that's how Rehab Net started.
So, and then, okay. So how many clinics were involved in the beginning? How many owners?
12 to 15.
12 to 15. How did that even begin? Did you just call your buddy up and be like, hey man, I'm drowning. Do you want to get together and take a stand together? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, I was a young kid on the block. There were a couple of older therapists at the time that mentioned it. I was on the physical therapy board in Arkansas by that time. And I had a private practice. I was a part of the Pilgrim company, which you mentioned earlier. And Bob Pilgrim was an amazing influence in the practice of physical therapy in Arkansas. He had already passed away in the plane crash by the time we'd gotten this going. But because of my association with him, I think a lot of the older therapists took notice of me and the fact that I was put into that position with the company and doing some things. So I was just kind of drug along because, hey, he might know something. And so once we got going, I became president of the organization back in like 1993 or something like that, and did that for several years.
Now, you were also the president of the APTA, no?
I just finished being the APTA Arkansas president. When I was on the physical therapy board, I didn't do a lot with the association because I didn't want to mix the regulatory side and the special interest side. I stayed active in the private practice section and doing some things. Of course, I had Rehab Net, which was total special interest, but I don't know why I made the distinction that I shouldn't be real active in the association and also in the state board side. But after I went off the state board, it's important. I mean, to me, if our profession is going to do anything, we have to join together at some level, and we have to have a common purpose, and we have to be moving in the right direction, in an organized direction. So I've been a member of APTA since 1982. I feel strongly that everyone should be a member of the association. I don't agree with everything the association does and has been doing over the years, but until we can form something else, or until we can morph this into something, this is where we need to be.
Look at that. So it's so funny for those of you who are listening or watching this later. He says, I don't always agree with everything the organization does. And everyone just started smiling. It's kind of this funny, dance that we have. And so I don't want to get all into it, but like, just as a side note, what do you think the limitations of the APTA are in helping us as a profession claim what's ours?
Oh gosh, I I, I believe the APTA, in a large way, has lost its way over the years. A wonderful organization, some great leaders, but I don't know that we are standing for physical therapy as much as we're standing for the social aspects of physical therapy, influence, um, uh, even the private practice section, I think, has changed over the years. And, as with the advent of some of the big corporate practices and things like that, it's a different organization than I think the original entrepreneurial private practice, which we've stayed more true to in Rehab Net in Arkansas. Um, I want our association to roll their sleeves up and start fighting insurance companies. I want them to start fighting against encroachment into our profession, and worry less about some of the more global issues that are out there. We have an opportunity to stand for physical therapy as an association. We're not doing it, in my opinion. It's we have room to grow, and we need leadership that's willing to take that stand and can organize and see. In Arkansas, the leaders of the association are private practice entrepreneurs. The last three presidents of the APTA Arkansas are private practice people. And Rehab Net members as well. So, I mean, we have an opportunity. I would love for our association to really roll up their sleeves and get back to what I think the roots of, we need to know that what we're doing is best demonstrated practice, and that we're fighting for. I mean, when you look at a company like Cigna, who posted $1 billion net profit last quarter, and they're going to pay us $60 for a visit. I mean, watch our
association. Makes me so angry. I'm going to be passive aggressive all night to my spouse. No, I'm kidding. I think it's one of those things, though, that is unbelievable what they're doing. Seth, why? So in your world, do you believe that like Rehab Net is the missing component to like an APTA type of thing, where the APTA was initially intending and was fighting those things? Is that why Rehab Net was partly created, or at least what it stands for today?
Absolutely. Rehab Net is giving us a political voice in Arkansas. We have exploded in the pediatric world when we went to the privatization of Medicaid by using the provider-led Arkansas Shared Savings Entities, which is the way Medicaid is reimbursing providers now. You have to do it through what we call a pass in Arkansas. And Rehab Net took the lead with that. And when we did that, the pediatric practices exploded in our membership. And it's been great for Rehab Net. And we've been, I would say, great for the pediatric practices. We were the main influence in getting a raise in Medicaid rates for the first time in 15 years in Arkansas.
Let's talk about that a little bit more to jump in. Can you share some of the big wins that you guys have had at Rehab Net over the years?
Sure. Big win would be one of the most recent big wins would be to get an increase in reimbursement for Medicaid for everyone in Arkansas, not just Rehab Net members, but for everyone. So, I mean, that was huge. Our current president, Gabe Frialdenhoven, is a master at numbers and is an amazing individual. And he has been an amazing leader for RehabNet in that regard. We actually formed a company called RehabNet Outpatient Services, which RehabNet owns it 100%. And we also formed a company called Significare to battle the one call, or whatever they call themselves, Align Network. And we basically have pushed them out of most of the private practice space in Arkansas because they're just stealing money, in my opinion. They use physical therapists to steal money, and they'll tell an industry that, hey, we can save you 10-15% on your work comp, and that's all they're saving. They're paying us peanuts, and they're taking the bulk of it. They're getting paid almost what we are just for managing it. So we did that with Significare. We formed a company to compete with Align Network, and that was right before COVID hit. It's still a company, but it's on life support. We're trying to decide what we're going to do with it, if we're going to do anything with it or not. RehabNet provides all of the continuing education that we need to maintain licensure in Arkansas.
Wow.
So if you're a member of RehabNet, for what, $150 or less a month, you can have all of your continuing education prepaid. So my whole team, they need continuing ed. Go to a RehabNet meeting, and you'll meet all of the requirements you need for the state of Arkansas to be licensed or to continue your license through continuing ed anyway. So we do that. That's huge. RehabNet has, we joined forces with the Arkansas Association years ago and hired lobbyists. So we are a political force. The governor knows who we are. The legislators know who we are. We can get audience with them without too much difficulty, just because we're part of RehabNet, because they know that we are literally 1,800 licensed professionals strong in Arkansas. Now, that's not all PT, it's PTOT and speech. It's RehabNet is, it's been a great way for us to share information with owners, and for owners to grow, for someone to say, hey, I mean, I've personally visited with probably 4 or 5 different therapists wanting to start a private practice. And I'll say, hey, this is the way I've done it. This one fell on its face like this, avoid this. I said, I can, share with you what I think is important and how you should go about it. And you can take that and use some of it or none of it. But that's the kind of relationship that we have in Arkansas. I can pick the phone up and call any number of therapists and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this. What do you think? And
that's amazing.
We help each other. So.
Well, and that kind of goes back to the main point of like these calls. What we've learned over time is that our network is our net worth, that famous phrase. Right. And so what you have done is create a very intentional network that stands for your industries, PTOT and SLP in Arkansas. And those wins are phenomenal. I want to talk about one in particular that you mentioned, the hiring of lobbyists. When we were with you in Arkansas last month, I admittedly don't understand the political system very well. I know what a lobbyist is, kinda, but at the end of the day, after hearing how you worked with them, it made me realize that's an area of major exposure that we need to fill in terms of a political front as an industry nationwide. Can you, for people who are on the call or listening, can you explain why lobbyists are important and what your thoughts are about the lobbyists that we leverage through the APTA and why maybe those are or aren't as effective?
Sure. Lobbying was an important thing for us none of us had time to really keep up with all the legislative things going on. So we needed someone to help us and do that, and that's a lobbyist. They basically visit and have relationships with all the legislators and the governor, and can keep keep tabs on legislation that's coming about. So we couldn't do that. So we had to pay somebody to help us do that. And so we did that in Arkansas. We do that on the national level. It's not always been a perfect process. Sometimes we miss things. Sometimes the lobbyist needs us to do things. We need to really, have a grassroots, get to know your legislators, please. The lobbyists can help us do that. That's something that I think is very important. If you need something done legally, it's going to have to be done through legislation. And the best way to do that is to have an advocate on your side, which is going to be your lobbyist. So right now, right now, RehabNet and Arkansas Physical Therapy Association share a lobbyist. We actually have 2 lobbying firms that work with us, and I don't remember exactly what we pay, but it's definitely a cost. It's a cost, but I think it's important, and they're able to help us understand what laws are going to affect us and how we can better our position, and which legislators we need to be working with. And we've had 2 PTs and 1 PTA that I'm aware of in Arkansas that were part of the State House, part of the legislative process, which is also good. And I would encourage more therapists to run for office. So.
Okay. Love that. I love your support of the APTA and your recognizing their limitations. I actually don't want to go down that road of like, why are the lobbyists not working for the APTA? I think I get that sense, but I would like to know where you see RehabNet going. What's the vision of what you guys are creating?
Yes, we are really looking at that. In the next few weeks, we're actually going to have a strategic planning session with Scott Fritz to really look at what we want to be, what we really want to do, and when we get all done with it, what are we going to have at the end of that road? We've grown a lot. We have done a lot. Do we want to just stay with what we're doing, or do we want to expand it? I think there's an opportunity personally to expand and see how big we can get this, and see if we can get other organizations and the influence of other people to come together and fight for physical therapy and fight for what's right. I would love for us to be able to share information. Kristen Fox and I were able to talk some in between the last time she was on, and an amazing person. What a leader that is.
Seriously.
So Kristen, yeah, those are the type of people that we need in our profession, running for office as well. But to me, we have to have an association. If each one of us spent $250 on some legislative initiative, we'll get nowhere. But if each one of us put $250 together and spent that same amount of money on a directed effort, we will be able to make something happen. So we need to be able to have a coalition, an association, and where RehabNet goes from here, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to expand it into maybe neighboring states and dip our toes in the water there and see how that works. It basically comes down to what can we do, what do we want to do. Continuing ed is a big thing. Advocacy for our profession is huge. just being able to have a place that's safe for owners to visit. You all came, and I was so excited to have you guys come to the owners retreat, because I've been so impressed with you and Michelle, and I was really excited. I wasn't sure if I could get all of you there, but that was exciting for me to expose my people here to the leadership that's there, and the force that's working to help our profession. Because Rehab Net's at a crossroads. We've reached a level that way bigger than I ever thought we would be. And now we got to decide: are we going to, keep going? There are a few practices in Arkansas that are not Rehab Net members, but we definitely have we probably have the majority of the private practices in Arkansas are Rehab Net members.
Okay. Well, I love that. Michelle, why don't you keep us up to date with those inputs? By the way, Michelle, I will read Michelle's first before she reads everyone else's. That Falling into Leadership is not the title of a book until you write it, Seth.
Oh.
It's kind of like a cool pun on words for PTs. People fall and break their hips, falling into leadership,
right.
All these analogies. Michelle, take it away.
All right. So we have some time. Candice indicated, Seth, I'm excited to hear what you are doing. We need to chat, ! I am doing very similar things as Rehab Net in Nebraska. And then the powerful leader, Kristen, indicated, like, Candice, I'm so very excited and working on something similar in South Dakota. So that's just like Will was saying, and I think he says here, that's why I was thinking we should be on this call. You leaders could combine forces and take over the world. It's just like the monetary analogy that you gave, Seth, where you indicated like $250 standing on its own may not amount to a hill of beans, but if we put it together, we can make some big chili, right? Like we can really, I don't know what I'm doing. We can create a really, really big thing, right? That's we're limited with our individual scopes. So I'm excited for all of that.
Yeah. And I love how Candice jumped in and said, let's take this thing national.
National, yes.
I think that's where we're going. I don't know. I didn't know what this was. I didn't know what this was, 6 months ago. It was a matter of people responded to one thing. And then I said, let's get on a call. And we had a lot of people the first time, and it's ebbed and flowed. We've had, I think it was 30 to 5, but literally there are hundreds and thousands of views every time we do these meetings. And I think what it is that we're all just trying to find a way to take a stand for this, because I think we all know where it's going. So when we have the Seths and the Kristens and the Candices of the world organize successfully and win battles, we start thinking, how can we win the war? And so RehabNet obviously is in that same mindset. How do we expand? And then you've got Candice. And I think that's what I'm not sure, but I'm already getting this really strong sensation that what this call is, the stand for PTOT SLP, is the national movement, not necessarily the brand itself, maybe, but the space by which this problems get solved. As soon as I said that, I got chills. That's exactly what this is. This is the space by which we are going to organize what's missing, but we're not inventing the wheel. We are taking the battle plans from the successful battles won all across the country. In a couple of things come to mind. First and foremost, let me get on my soapbox. Number one, we can't do this as a PT professional alone, as an OT professional alone, or as an SLP professional alone. We have to stand as rehabilitative experts in order to change our industries. Because even though we tend to be more in a silo, we all know we overlap. We are considered as one. So let's become one. There's 250,000 physical therapists, about that OT, about that SLP. So why wouldn't we combine that and get a lot closer to that 750,000 potential fighters, right? The size of the war is massive. We need as many soldiers as we can get. And I think that as we look at, the ranks of this thing, we've got generals in this room from across the country. I don't know how this would look, but I have a really strong, I'm willing to bet farm that the people in this room know how to figure it out if we just put some time and a little bit more conversation into this. So I don't care personally if like what we're doing here resonates with all 650,000 PTOTs and SLPs. I don't care, because there's a high percentage of people who are just nose to the, what is it? Yeah. Michelle, what is it? Anyway, so the point
Grindstone.
I'm muted to the grindstone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We need people who are committed to change, who are going to actually take action, because there's this APTA event called the Graham Sessions, which sounds amazing. I've never been, so I'm not going to rip on it. I just know whatever we've been doing isn't working, and it's time for the entrepreneurs to come in and make it happen. Looks like Kelly, can I share that comment or no? She sent me a direct message here. Kelly Comstock from Alaska, wonderful human being. I just testified at 2 Alaska State Senate committee meetings in support of PT compact legislation. And it was very interesting introduction to the political process. You know, guys, none of us became PTs because we wanted to be political revolutionaries, which is probably not the right words to say. I'm going to regret those at some point. But the point is that we all became PTs because we care about people. And that's the unifying blood in all PTOTs and SLPs. We didn't ever choose this profession to be rich. We didn't choose this profession for anything other than a very sincere desire to serve other human beings. And I would argue, as much as Kristen Fox shakes her head no when we're talking about how great she is, she literally was doing that the whole time.
Yeah.
Despite that, we all have to agree that the inherent nature of who we are as rehabilitative experts is probably the greatest soil by which a future leader could be born out of. Love? Come on. Like, at the end of the day, that's the thing about Seth that really stands out to me. He has this incredible loving nature but see, love isn't weak, right? Like it's meek. Like Seth is. He can't take a compliment because he's very much a leader who deflects to his team at all times, but he will stand for what needs to happen. He has shared some private conversations I know he wouldn't want me to share about how he's had some very strong conversations within our industry for what matters most, instead of maybe what the APTA is doing. So that's what we need. We need that kind of strength here. And as Seth, you're talking about the vision of the crossroads. I think by hiring Scott Fritz, for those of you who don't know, Scott Fritz is a massive leader. He's not a physical therapist, but he's been in the PT world since 2008, thanks to Michelle and I. So we hired him as a coach after he sold his business, and he stepped into coaching full time. And we have learned the power of organization and projecting a specific plan into motion, right? So yeah, I've said a lot, and just want to find out from Michelle, do you have any questions for Seth, or do you have any thoughts you'd like to share?
Me personally?
Yes.
None at this moment. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Seth, you've talked a lot. And I loved and I meant that in a positive way. You've shared a lot of information. I would like to hear from the group now. Do you guys have any questions for Seth in terms of like what he did, or any piece of his journey? Please feel free to chime in and ask some questions. I have a feeling Kristen's going to ask something.
Yeah, I've got one. I just wanted to clarify, Seth, you said that your state association and Rehab Net went in together, like, and shared a lobbyist, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. In the very beginning, neither one of us thought we could afford by ourselves the full brunt of the lobbying load. So we were able to say, hey, let's work together, which is a lot of what Rehab Net has been about. So we have a PAC, political action committee, that we share with the association. And so we equally share in the lobbying cost every month. And it's a monthly thing. So it goes on 12 months out of the year. Okay. Even though the legislative session's not in, I thought it was important, and still think it's important, that our lobbyists are working for us every month. They're building those relationships and representing us as a profession, or Rehab Net as an organization, which has all three disciplines as part of its ownership. So
yeah.
Oh, sorry, Kristen.
No, go ahead.
can't find my stand. So I'll talk about this next month, but a pro tip is our PT, OT, and speech associations all share the same lobbyist now.
Oh,
So I'll talk about it
Ah.
next month.
Ooh, what a preview.
and see, I think that's great. That is really good. Now we formed in Arkansas, we formed a allied health coalition to specifically work toward alleviating arguments about legislative events. And that coalition has PTs, OTs, speech, chiropractors, and athletic trainers. And we brought them all together to sit down and say, what do you have? You know, what's out there? Can we talk about it in this roundtable session and not get up in Senate hearings and start throwing barbs at each other? We haven't gone real far with that because there's some trust issues, particularly with athletic trainers and physical therapists in Arkansas. But to me, that was a big step, and that's something we need to be doing more of. I mean, Will, if we can get 600,000 people marching in the same direction with a common purpose and goal, then man, there's nothing we can't do. I mean, that would be huge. So now
Kristen,
I
do you have
will.
something more?
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Seth.
I was gonna say in Arkansas, we all are Rehab Net members are individual owners. We don't have there's no one tax ID. I think there's some other organizations out there that are top loaded with like one big company, and then they bring some other members in. But we are all individual businesses, so we can't dictate what happens. We can't, if we sign the contract, and we've done a lot of contracting with insurance companies over the years, we can sign a contract and offer it, but our members can accept it or deny it however they want. So there's been some things that have weakened us. If Cigna Insurance paying us $60 for a visit, if we all said no, we're not taking it, let's renegotiate. I think we could get somewhere. But there are those who think, well, I can't give up. I'd rather take $60 than nothing. And so some of that is just realization that the world's not going to end if you stand up and say, I'm worth this amount. And
it's easier when we're together, as a matter of fact, when we all stand like you. I think like a homework assignment would be to go watch Bug's Life and just realize the painful exactness of that metaphor. It literally, we act like we're this service that gets referred out to when we are the medical professionals of rehabilitation, and they need us. They need us so badly. But what's the reason? I don't even know who said this at one of our calls, but what's the reason why they keep doing it? Because we'll take it.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
Yeah.
Just keep going. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, we do more than just that, Will. We open the door and invite them in.
And we sharpen the knives that you said this on.
Exactly.
We sharpen the knives that cuts our own throat.
Right. I mean, it baffles me that we do. And I get it. I understand it. But at the same time, we have to at some point say no. And RehabNet has really done well with work in the work comp space to try to educate our membership and get rid of some of the I probably regret this, but the thieves out there that are literally stealing from us. We're dealing with some telehealth stuff right now, trying to make sure, are we doing the right thing in terms of telehealth, and where's RehabNet going to be? What are we going to say, and how are we going to approach that? So we're working on a lot of different things, and we are at a crossroads. And I think in this country we're at a crossroads in terms of rehabilitation, and it would be so exciting to me if we could form leverage what we already have, form something new, whatever it is, we just got to get more people on these type calls to say, what's the possibilities, and help each other. I mean, let's help each other. I mentioned Gabe Friaudenhoven earlier. His practice is about a mile down the road from mine, and there's a practice between us that's Rehab Net members. And I mean, Gabe and I probably talk 3 or 4 times a month on different things. He's president of Rehab Net right now, and I'm currently the vice president, just because I wanted to know what was going on, so I jumped back in.
Well, Seth, I want to thank you for being our guest. That was very powerful. A couple of key takeaways come to mind before we jump off the call, which I really think are important. Number one, I really want to get on a call before our next meeting with Candice. All of you are welcome. I'm insisting that we get Kristen, Seth, Candice, Michelle on that call. And there's another individual that I invited that reached out to me after our last month's call with Kristen, who he owns a very large company out in a private practice owner who owns a large company who's trying to do everything he can in his neck of the woods. And I just would really like for us to get together on a call and see how we can leverage this type of meeting to start inspiring more reciprocal growth. And I would like to just encourage all of you to spread the word on this to your individual organizations. Hey, this is a call that's making a difference. I think at this point, we've had a lot of discussion, but we're starting to organize, whether we know it or whether we see it or not. I can see it. We're starting to organize. So Candice is going to share what she did next month. And then my thought is, based on that conversation we have in between these meetings, we start legitimately putting rubber to the road on this thing. And again, all this space is the space to create it. I don't have a vision of what it looks for other than the outcome, which is that insurance companies cower when they see our legislative fourth. If we can have that kind of strength as we're going legislatively to the insurance companies, to the government, I know we can make a stand for what we do. Michelle says, do you find that there is a unified voice in the APTA and Rehab Net when working with the lobbyists in the state
You're
association?
sharing the lobbyists. Is there any kind of struggle between the state association and what Rehab's like desires and intentions are whenever you're working with them as you go to send them in to battle for you?
We have had some mixed purposes along the way. The association is going to represent some entities that could not be members of Rehab Net, physician-owned practice, large corporate practices, hospital practices. Those things are not what Rehab Net, you would disqualify you from being in Rehab Net. So there really haven't been any major political things along those lines, but we've had to work through a few things. Now, our association is strong because of Rehab Net as well. Like I said, our current president is a Rehab Net member. I was a Rehab Net member. The president before me was a Rehab Net member. So there's a lot of overlap there that is just organically there. So I think as long as we keep the theme that we're fighting for physical therapy, whether it's private practice or not, but the hard, cold, honest truth is that those in private practice are going to be the ones that are going to drive an entrepreneurial initiative at all. And if not, I just don't think. I think if we leave it to everybody else, we're going to have what my mother used to say: the more you do of what you're doing, the more you'll have of what you got. So we've got to do something a little bit different.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thank you.
Well, that is going to be a great stopping point for our meeting today. Thanks to all of you again. So excited to hear from Candice next month. Candice, if you'll shoot me over a bio, I'd like to be able to introduce you the right way. And we look forward to having you all there. Rest of you guys, keep an ear out for that email. And Jeffrey and Kelly, if you guys want on that meeting, I'd love to have you in there. Seriously, just send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. So appreciate everyone who listened to this in your drive home. Final thought, just don't forget that you matter. Like all those stressful, intense situations you're going through, whether it's fighting for reimbursement or dealing with a difficult team member or struggling with your profitability, just remember we're all in it together. And the only way out is if we help. So we'll have a great month and we'll see you guys then.
Thanks, Will. Thanks,
Thank you
Michelle.
guys.
Yep. Thank you.